Hi everybody, this is a 7th grade history video. This is part 2. We're in section 12.2 from this book. On Tuesday we did the first half of the Inca. This is now the second half, so let's get right into it. So like many other cultures, the Inca class structure was broken up by rich, poor, fishermen, farmers, and slaves and all that too, and soldiers. Some people were so low that they weren't even allowed to marry, and some could. They also were religious. And this part's pretty scary here, this little guy right here, if you can see that. Before I tell you what it is, what do you think that is? Before I tell you what it is, what do you think it is? Well, if you look right here, I'll tell you. Well, it's scary. It's like a knife. And it was used in sacrifices by like fathers or by priests, so that they would sacrifice sometimes humans or animals to their gods too. So that's a pretty, it looks beautiful like a jewelry, but it's actually a pretty scary thing. So it's found in here too. They also built temples or like churches to worship their gods like we do now. And also they prayed and did like ceremonies and rituals. That's something we did too. Human sacrifices were really rare. And sometimes they would only kill humans if it hadn't rained for a while. That's called a drought. Also, the emperor would decide whether or not to do this too. So the Inca did have a mighty army, but like every other country and every other people that we've ever learned about, they get really powerful and then something sketchy happens. And the sketchy thing is right here. Basically, they had a bad leader, and his name was Atahualpa, this A word right here. And what happened is that his brother was the emperor, and he decided that he wanted to be the emperor. So he fought and killed his own people. That's called a civil war. And what happened that happened in the year 1527. So Atahualpa's brother was in charge. Atahualpa, because of jealousy or power, whatever, kills his brother and kills a lot of Incans. He kills his own people. Well, then the next year, while all this is happening, this guy from Spain named Francisco Pizarro and his troops arrive in the Inca lands. Now, this is a huge problem. And here's a painting describing this. The Spaniards had horses. They had better armor. They had helmets. They had shields. They had body armor. See, here's a horse right here. It was no match for the Incas. It was just too easy to kill them. What happened was Francisco Pizarro sent a message to Atahualpa, and he goes, hey, I want to meet you. I want to talk. Bad idea. What he does is when Atahualpa arrives, he takes him prisoner, and then he kills him. So that's a problem. And he conquered peoples. He took this opportunity to rebel against their Inca masters. So after this happens, after the king dies, people just go crazy. 3 years later, the Spanish controlled most of the Inca lands. And if you think about it, in our last lesson, we learned that the Incas spoke Quechua. Why do they speak Spanish? It makes sense now. The people from Spain, because of Francisco Pizarro and his soldiers, they speak Spanish in Spain. So that's why they now speak Spanish in Peru. So 3 years later, they controlled, and just like now what's happening in the world, there's diseases that were brought by these Europeans, and the Inca Empire fell officially in 1572. Wow. This is sort of weird too. This is one of your Google Doc questions. They didn't really have writing. They didn't write stuff down, but they had these quipu. I know it says quipu, not poo-poo, quipu. And it helped them do this. So they used, here's a good picture of it. You can pause your video. It was like a long, like knotted little string, and they used it to sort of count and stuff. You can measure stuff. You could represent numbers for populations, for tools, for also to preserve history. It was like for symbols. So the question asks, what's a quipu? In your writing, you would say it was to keep records in history and to count. So they had no really writing too. They also, this will be the last part of our video too, they also did some things in medicine up here and medical advances too. So this is sort of crazy here, but this is the top of someone's head. That's called a skull. And as you can see, there's a big hole in it. So what they would even do is that the Inca had these medicines so the Inca developed medical knowledge that is still valuable. By studying sick people and local plants, they created very effective medicines, including quinine to cure fevers. Also, Inca surgeons performed blood transfusions. That's when you take someone's blood and give it to someone else. And even an early form of brain surgery, which is this picture here. So the Inca used stuff from the earth to help heal people too. And that in your Google Doc, that's one of the questions is what did they do? They did some type of brain surgery, and they also used the plants from the earth as medicine. I hope this video helped you with your history today. See you next time.